got the pen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry? You know, we need to get Rudy another pencil box. He took his pencil box from mine. I do, and here, Rudy can just have that. He took my pencil box that I bought for him down to your room.
Well,
So now he can have another.
you want 35 cents for it or $1.35? What was the regular price?
No, but he can just have that. So that he can take that to his desk. So he'll have some crayons.
I must have liked it. What color was it?
It was just like that.
Okay, that makes sense. But I think let's go with
Did you take it home?
No, I think I took it purple. I bet you that was it.
Oh, that's funny.
But he is the type, when he's cool enough, he would not know the and whereas I call him put prices for whatever.
That's great.
Well, I'll bring you a paper purple one. He isn't the one that needed it, actually. It was kind of someone that needed it. No, well, Rudy needs something. He doesn't have it.
Because like I said, I took him down with him. As good as I can get it.
Yeah, you only need this one. That's the nucleus.
Oh, good job. Yeah.
Only the nucleus has the DNA.
Can you label that nucleus?
If you want. But there's other activities I'm going to do here.
Okay, so do they need to label?
Only the nucleus.
Okay, so label the nucleus. Remember the very middle. Why don't you label it with a pencil? Remember when we do scientific illustrations, how we draw a straight line and label? A straight line out from the nucleus and label it. There it is. So remember, straight line, and then we label it.
And if you did draw the DNA, you can label that as well. I did that. I'm not labeling the DNA.
Okay, here. Oh, okay, I was going to say, just draw a straight line right out here, too. Just draw a straight line, nucleus.
I messed up a little bit.
It's okay. We're not doing, don't gotta worry about it. Okay. Yep. Okay. I think they're ready. Okay. Here we go. Eyes up here.
Oh, now that you guys got the cell structure somewhat down, we're going to go into proteins. So there's several different types of proteins, and they all have different functions and structures, so that's how they're made up. So proteins allow our hands and feet to move. That's like one of their functions. And then the protein that's connected to Rett Syndrome is called methylcytosine binding protein 2. So since that's really long, we're just going to call it MECP2. So does anyone know what's one thing that proteins help us do? Yeah. Live? Any other things that I mentioned? Whoa. Right here. Oh. It makes our hands muscle move. Yeah, so our muscle movement is another function of proteins. So now we're going to go into something more complicated, and that's called mutations.
Just put your head down, Elliot.
So mutation itself means change, but since we're focusing on genetics, so then change in DNA is mutation. And it can affect our body in different ways. It can do very little, or it could do a lot. So we're going to focus on mutations on gene basis. So those are types of mutations that will affect the protein. So how does a mutation affect a protein? The mutation first affects the DNA sequence. So that's just like a sentence in like a simpler way. The DNA sequence is made up of parts called nucleotides. So those are like letters in a sentence. So let's say the DNA sequence is a sentence, then the nucleotides would be the letters. So if the sentence is, the dog is brown. What is the DNA sequence? The sentence, remember?
The dog is brown.
Yeah. And then what are the nucleotides? There's a lot here, so you can choose one or two.
D.
Yeah, D. Because it's a letter. So B, for the, T is a nucleotide. And then the entire sentence is a DNA sequence. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So the DNA sequence only reads 3 nucleotides. So unlike us, it can only read 3 letters at a time. So 3 is the magic number here. So a set of 3 nucleotides or 3 letters is called a codon. Can you guys repeat codon? Codon. So codons are like 3-letter words, like cat, dog, cat. And so in the last sentence, the was a codon and dog is a codon, but these have more than 3, or less than 3 also, and theirs are not codons. And then each codon represents a unique amino acid. So what's an amino acid? Those are building blocks or a unit that makes a protein. So cells make us, like those are our units that make us. So for proteins, there are amino acids. And there are many types of amino acids, so that's why there's many types of proteins. And if the amino acid is changed or mutated, then the protein is changed or mutated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there are 3 types of mutations: insertion, deletion, and duplication. But for simpler languages, we're going to call it addition, subtraction, and repeat. So addition. This mutation is when extra nucleotides or extra letters are added to a DNA sequence or a sentence. So there could be 1 extra letter or there could be many extra letters. But if the number of nucleotides added is not a multiple of 3, and multiple of 3s are 3, 6, 9, 12, etc., then the entire DNA sequence will shift. So, like the letters in a sentence will all move positions if it's not a multiple of 3. And that's because 3 is the magic number, because DNA can only read in 3 letters. So if it's a multiple of 3, then there will be no shift. But either way, the codon will change the amino acid, and that will change the protein. So the type of protein that will be formed will have a different function. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So subtraction is the same thing as addition, except instead of adding, you're taking away the letters that are already present in the DNA sequence. So if the number that you remove are not a multiple of 3, the DNA sequence or the letters in a sentence will shift positions and all will change. So there'll be a different codon because it's in pairs of 3. And if it's not, or if it is a multiple of 3, then there will be no shift. But both ways, the codon will change the amino acid again. So it's the same thing but opposite. Does that make sense? So repeat or duplication is much more simpler. So in this one, you're not deleting or adding anything. It's just like if the letters in the sentence are repeating each other. So for the dog is brown, the letter E and the would be there twice and not just once. And then most of the time there's more than 1 nucleotide, so there's more than 1 letter that is repeated. And this mutation also brings a change to the amino acid. Since the whole new set is repeated, you're adding more letters, so then the length of the chain will be longer, and so that will affect the way the protein is made. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what did we just learn? That even though the mutations are a bit different from each other, they all come down to affecting the protein, which changes the function. And so we're going to work on a handout together, because it's a little bit complicated than the other one.
You want me to help pass out some of those?